Boston and, of course, MIT have such an incredible energy and climate ecosystem. Actually, for about a year throughout the MBA program, supported an MIT spin out in the climate tech space. So you just have so many opportunities to participate in sort of the startup ecosystem within climate and energy at MIT. And that's really what drew me to this particular program.
So now I'll pass it off to our panelists to introduce themselves. So feel free to start with your program and year, what you were doing prior to Sloan, what you're currently doing now, and then what your plans are post MBA or post LGO in your case, Gideon. So I will kick it off to you, Tyler.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining. Really excited to see the audience that we have here today of interested students and incoming students. My name is Tyler Wiik. I'm in my second year of my MBA here at MIT Sloan, and across the board, we're heavily involved in the Sloan Energy and Climate Club. So happy to talk about all of that as it pertains to the experience here at Sloan. Before Sloan, I worked in management consulting. I was at PwC for about 5 years before coming to do my MBA. Over the summer, during my internships while at Sloan, I spent my summer and then fall with Suffolk Technologies, which is an early stage venture fund here in Boston, and looking to stay in the venture space with a focus on climate and energy after graduation. I'll hand it over to Carly.
Thanks, Tyler. Very excited to be here and share some information on the energy and climate ecosystem here at Sloan. My name is Carly Grossman. I'm a second year MBA as well. Prior to Sloan, I worked in utility scale solar and battery storage project development. For my internship over last summer, I worked also in the VC world at a fund called Clean Energy Ventures based here in the Boston area, also climate tech focused. And I'll be looking to join the climate tech startup world, probably with a foot back in project development after I graduate.
Thanks, guys. My name is Gideon. I'm also a second year student here at Sloan. I'm in the Leaders for Global Operations program. So I'm an MS MBA student. My technical degree is in mechanical engineering. Prior to Sloan, I worked in ops and manufacturing, first at 3M and then at a 3D printing company called Markforged. While I'm here, I'm in the LGO program. We have a 6-month sort of fellowship rather than a standard internship. And mine was at Target, where I was working on supply chain simulation technologies for them. And after school, I'll be sort of working in the sort of Boston area tech scene, not directly climate, but with plans to hopefully get back into that scene down the line. So it's been really a fantastic few years here, and the climate community at Sloan and Boston more broadly is really incredible. So excited to chat with you guys all about that.
Awesome. Thank you each for sharing and giving us some insight into your journeys to get to the MBA program and to your point, getting into the MS MBA program here at Sloan. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and make it a more intimate conversation to have you all on my screen. So the first question I want to start off with is kind of on top of mind for myself as well as some of our prospects here is, could you share more about, your decision-making process and ultimately what led you to apply to MIT Sloan and ultimately enroll within our program? And anybody can start that.
Yeah, happy to kick it off. There are so many things to Sloan that makes it special. So I'll share kind of my top two, and we can go around. For me, particularly the impetus to come do my MBA in the first place was having a background in management consulting. I felt like I developed a lot of professional services skills, but wanted to find a way that I could make a more meaningful impact in what I care about, which is how can we have a more sustainable future. So for me, Sloan is special for really two distinct reasons. One is the hands-on learning. So you'll hear a lot about action learning. And for me, being in a classroom, having lectures with impressive professors is really important, but so is getting that hands-on experience. So at Sloan, I have taken as many action learning labs as I could to really get some of that hands-on experience that would prepare me for the world after Sloan. One of the labs I did was with a space-based solar startup. Another was with a battery recycling startup based in Singapore. And then the third is actually with a venture fund here in Boston. And so that's a great way to really see what it's like and how you can have an impact to really shape your career after Sloan. The second is a mantra you'll hear a lot: Sloanies helping Sloanies. For me, the community here is just as important as the classes and the clubs, particularly within the climate and energy ecosystem. Everyone comes from such diverse backgrounds across companies, across functions, across focus areas. And so you are learning so much from your fellow classmates who may be in a job function at a company that you want to go to after Sloan. And rather than sort of feeling like we're competing, it's really that Sloaney that's going to be side by side with you as you think about your career, as you go into interviews, and as you make these key decisions. So that Sloanies helping Sloanies is to me so important as part of the experience.
I'm happy to jump in here as well. So as I mentioned, I joined Sloan after I was working in solar and storage project development. So coming in, I was expecting to have a bit of a unique career background compared to a lot of other students who enter the MBA program. I was also really excited about sort of rejoining the energy ecosystem post Sloan or post business school rather at the time. So I really zeroed in on programs that I thought would help kind of connect me with other folks who are super interested in climate and energy. And there were only really a couple of MBA programs that I was super excited about in sort of the energy and climate capacity. And Boston and of course MIT have such an incredible energy and climate ecosystem. Actually, for about a year throughout the MBA program, supported an MIT spin out in the climate tech space. So you just have so many opportunities to participate in sort of the startup ecosystem within climate and energy at MIT, and that's really what drew me to this particular program.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, I echo what both of Tyler and Carly said. I think like with the people, that was the people that come to Sloan is a big piece of it as well. I think you get a very like specific community here that is people are really, really sharp, passionate, and just like open-minded and nice. And there's so many different ways to join different sort of sub communities within, whether it's a climate energy club or whether it's other organizations. But when you come here, it feels like, it doesn't feel like you're at this big, scary place. It feels like a really awesome community that you're part of. For me specifically, coming to the LGO program was really what I was looking for. I didn't want to, I wanted to maintain sort of some of that technical, I guess, like in future roles, I wanted to be at the intersection of business and engineering. And the LGO program was an awesome fit for that. And then sort of at the same time, you're able to, there's within LGO, there's all the stuff that happens within our program, which is really great. But everything outside of in the rest of Sloan is still fully accessible. And a lot of us are very involved in different clubs, whether it's the Climate Energy Prize, me doing the Sloan Energy Climate Club. And it's just a really, really great opportunity to do so many different things that you're excited about.
Thank you each for sharing that. And Carly, I want to start with you with this next question as it pertains to something that you talked about as it pertains to the location of MIT Sloan. So could you share how the location could benefit those who are interested in the energy and climate space or maybe sustainability overall? And Tyler and Gideon, feel free to jump in as well.
Absolutely. So I think like folks largely consider Boston and SF to be the sort of climate tech hubs in the US, just in terms of like startup activity and community. And so Boston was really appealing to me as a city. And of course, Cambridge itself has huge activity, both in sort of the startup space and academic realm. So yeah, Boston was particularly appealing to me. And as I mentioned, I was working at, a Boston-based fund. I was able to work at a Boston-based climate tech startup through MIT. And so I think there are huge opportunities. And then you'll also have really close proximity to New York, which is great. The Energy and Climate Club has done a couple of New York tracks since I've been at Sloan, and you get some more exposure to different climate and energy companies that are based in New York, which is of course, a huge hub for job opportunities for Sloanies. And so I think both of those factors certainly played into my MIT decision.
Fully echo everything if Carly said. And the way I like to think about the value of MIT Sloan's location is you kind of have MIT Sloan, which is your home base. Then you have MIT broadly. then you have Boston broadly, and then you have kind of the places like New York. So Sloan is where you can really find that home base, really find your core community, but then tapping across the whole program across MIT, where we have clubs and classes that are actually joint registered between graduate students in the engineering programs, Sloan programs that are really cultivating an environment of entrepreneurship. And then really, I would encourage folks to look into some of the things that we have here in Boston. So the Engine is actually MIT spinout that's in incubator and venture funds just down the road. There's Greentown Labs, which is like a co-working space, an incubator as well that's just up the street. So there's so many ways to get tapped into the ecosystem. So being in Boston is hugely valuable to get some of that experience.
Yeah, and I would add, I was going to mention Greentown and the Engine. Those are like, there's a million MIT people at both of those places. So it's not like, oh, these are these things that I have to like try to find an in at. Like, no, like the people here that are in the community, your professors, there's like 1,000 different routes to talk to people who work at those places. So it's really, and they both have like incredible companies that are being built there and have been built and are now successful.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. And I want to talk about you all's involvement within the Sloan Energy and Climate Club as you all are on the leadership team there and serving as outgoing co-president. So could you share about how did you get involved with the Energy and Climate Club and how has the club shaped your trajectory, whether it was professional, academically, excuse me?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think on the academic front, so we all got involved by joining as members of first year, which is super accessible. And typically what we'll do is there's like there's a few second years who are presidents, and then everyone else who sort of wants to join the club as a member can join, but then there's also applications to join the exec board. And those are applications, but generally speaking, if you want to get involved and you're passionate about it, you're not going to have a problem joining the board of the Sloan Energy and Climate Club. It's very much like if you want to be a part of it, you want to contribute, you want to put on events, you're able to join and do that. And a lot of it, the club is, I'd say we have presidents, but like it's pretty flat in the sense that people put on, we had one person who decided they wanted to do more social events, and we were all sort of learning from each other, and we had folks who've come from cool Sloan like climate energy backgrounds like Carly, and we've had folks who were like at Tesla working on batteries. So it's very cool in that way, and that's how we all got involved. Just decided we wanted to join it and started contributing.
Yeah, absolutely. And would just kind of echo what Gideon shared about the community. I think certainly we share a ton of resources internally. And so if you're interested in getting a better understanding from like the second year students, what classes really shaped their experience first year in the climate and energy space, you can get some good tips. Sometimes it's like a little hard to find classes that kind of fit your interests outside of the Sloan ecosystem. Obviously, all of the Sloan classes are super talked about, but less so kind of at the broader institute. And so we share all of that conversation internally. But I think beyond that, it's just a phenomenal community. And I think that's what I've appreciated most about the club is particularly meeting folks who are not in your class. I've had a great time this year just meeting folks from the first year MBA program who are also interested in really similar spaces, and kind of sharing our learnings throughout our careers has been a great aspect of the club.
Absolutely. And all three of us kind of came in with this focus from day one, so really got involved. But really, and it's an opportunity. We've had second years join for the first time who have heard that energy is a really exciting space and they just want to learn. And so it's really accessible in that way because, as Carly alluded to, kind of some of the events that we put on are we'll do lunch and learns where industry professionals will come speak about their profession. We'll do treks to some of the places either around Boston or New York or beyond. And then we put on really, like, as Gideon mentioned, these sort of networking events. So it's really accessible for folks who come to Sloan knowing that they want to pursue a career in energy, or if that's not your route, but you are just interested in learning about the space, you can come to some of those events. And so it's really, I like to think of a choose your own adventure. How involved or not you want to be is really up to you.
Awesome. I want to go back to something Carly said about the classes and the full integration of the experience that you have here. So, could you share more about the integration aspect of MIT Sloan, whether it's the Sloan electives that you can potentially take, or maybe some examples you can provide of classes that are very unique here, or the full integration that you had on the main side of campus, or maybe even cross-registering at Harvard. So, what are some of those examples that you can provide of the integration aspect of the Sloan MBA?
Absolutely. I'm happy to kick us off here. So I think in terms of Sloan classes, there are huge offerings in the climate and energy space. I believe Tyler, Gideon, and I were all in an energy markets class, for example, last spring that Professor Knittel teaches, which is really a deep dive on energy markets. And even if you're currently working in this space, just a huge learning opportunity through that class. And that's just one of several different, climate, energy, sustainability classes that are offered here. There's a sustainability certificate, which kind of gears you directionally towards a series of classes that are focused on the sustainability and climate space. And even beyond. So I had mentioned that there are classes kind of that aren't as talked about at Sloan that are super relevant if you're interested in this space. I took a class through DUSP, which is the Urban Planning Master's Program here at MIT. That was sort of an infrastructure book club class. And so if you're interested more in the broader sort of infrastructure landscape, it was fantastic. I got to meet folks from kind of the broader campus who had very different kind of career path interests, but sort of just a lot of overlap in the energy and infrastructure space. And so I think there are ways that you can kind of layer those classes on. And we certainly have a sort of a core climate and energy group at Sloan where we have some overlap in all of these different aspects of Sloan, both academic program and sort of the extracurriculars that we participate in.
One thing I'd add on the class side is, and I don't know if there's any prospective LGOs or incoming LGOs, but one of the cool things is the ability to go take sort of the technical classes on the other side of campus. And this would be accessible to other folks too if you just wanted to join as a listener. But like one of the classes I took was called Fundamentals of Advanced Energy Conversion. And you learn like, okay, why does it actually make sense to have a combined cycle plant, and why do we have like a turbine and then like a more traditional steam plant afterwards, and how do hydrogen fuel cell works, and really cool stuff like that. So that is, if folks are interested in that, that is also a very cool part of being on MIT's campus, which you might not get at some of the other schools out there.
Thank you all.
The last I'll just the last I'll just add is, we talked a little bit about kind of the different ones. There's also classes that are sort of cross-registered, and one of the famous ones folks will hear about is Climate and Energy Ventures, which is, Sloan, the MIT graduate programs will get some cross-registrations coming over from Harvard as well. And that's a class where folks will pitch research they're doing, ideas they had, form teams of graduate engineering students, Sloan students, so get both the technical and the business side. And the class is really, how do you try to go from 0 to 1 with a climate and energy startup? And so that's just one of those, again, it's a little bit hands-on, it's a little bit cross-registered, and it's just a really unique experience that I think is really only available at a place like Sloan. And the only thing I'll say is that, as we all have our favorite classes, but one of the things the clubs does is have a class registry that all of this feedback, all of these ideas are shared there, so that club members can really get a sense of what's available to them over their 2 years at Sloan.
And I want to keep a pin on the academic side of things, because within the admissions office, we do get a lot of questions about how AI is transforming our curriculum. So could you all share maybe some of your experiences within the classroom of how AI is transforming energy and climate, or maybe within some action learning class that you may have taken as well?
Yeah, I'm happy to start here. One of the things that I have loved about MIT and Sloan is taking a AI, like an openness to the way AI is embedded into the classroom, because I do think it is fundamentally changing education. But it's an approach of learning and development and showing how you're using it. So in that climate and energy ventures class, the Martin Trust Center, which is the MIT Center for Entrepreneurship, actually developed something called Jetpack, which is an AI-enabled tool to help you get your startup off the ground. And part of our assignments are using Jetpack to help do what would otherwise takes days and weeks and months to do in minutes. So that's really kind of how it's embedded in some of those action learning or more hands-on classes. And then just broadly, even outside of the energy ecosystem, classes are using it. For example, I took a class where the final project was building some sort of AI tool or agent to do anything. And so, of course, we took an energy focus on that project, and it was basically an agent that went out and collected data on development of data centers and where the sources of power are coming from. But that it's really encouraged, because coming out of Sloan, you want to be skilled and enabled to use these tools in your career going forward.
One thing I would totally echo what Tyler said, and I'm actually a TA for one of the action learning classes called Operations Lab. And as part of our curriculum, we've actually added things. So whereas in years past, we had just, given assignments, etc., we have added 2 assignments, one of which is a survey of how the students are using the different AI tools and how they're using them at the stages of sort of the problem solving methodology, which the operations lab class teaches. And ultimately, we're asking the students not only to deliver value to the organization they're helping, but also explain how they leveraged AI to help these organizations move faster and learn to use the tools in the way that we are, where it's very much the focus of our education and sort of being on the cutting edge.
I don't think I have anything to add to those answers.
All right, so we're getting close to the end of our moderated Q&A portion, so feel free to continue to drop your questions in the Q&A chat. I have about a couple questions left for our panelists before we transition to that. One of them is reflecting on your time as co-presidents of the club. What are some of the past initiatives or projects that you're particularly proud of that you had, feel like it was a lasting legacy for you?
So I think from a specifically club perspective, last year I was very focused on careers and recruiting. And so I think just bringing alumni to campus to kind of share career paths in the energy and climate space, bringing folks from the industry to campus to help facilitate internships and full-time offers is probably what I'm most proud of on the club side. I will say that I think through my experience and my leadership role through the club, I also ended up at Clean Energy Ventures over the summer, and I worked on a really interesting project that was focused on sort of risk sharing for first of a kind climate tech projects. And we actually ended up presenting that study at New York Climate Week in the fall, which was really exciting. And so I think that the club and sort of the broader MIT community really opened up that path for me, and very excited and was very proud of the project that I worked on with some folks at Clean Energy Ventures as well.
I think I mentioned. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gideon.
I was going to say I think one of the things we brought more focus to this year was, all these professional events are great, bringing in speakers is great, but we can learn so much from each other, and people that come here have so much knowledge. And a lot about being in business school is building connections in a network. And so we focus more on social stuff to actually get to know the club members and sort of build that internal community. And I think that has been really valuable, which sounds sort of not super complicated or like a big initiative, but I think it might have been one of the most valuable things that we decided to do this year.
Yeah, totally echo everything there. And so maybe just a slightly different one then is a project that I was working on with fellow club members is one of the action learning labs I mentioned. So we were working with a battery recycling startup based out of Singapore. The National University of Singapore has a close relationship with MIT. So it was 5 of us, me and 4 other of the club members. And we were actually able to travel over to Singapore, see the lab in person, go see some of the factories in person. We're using this the rest of the semester to help them understand their go-to-market strategy, and in particular, which country is most valuable for them to go build their first plant as they scale up this technology. That's going to be huge from a sustainability, recycling, and critical minerals perspective. And for me, that's just such a uniquely MIT Sloan experience to be able to get to do that. So really a great way that I feel like has rounded out my time here at Sloan.
And that's a great segue. So I know you all are on the, I guess, final stages of your time within the MBA program as well as the LGO program. I just want you to kind of reflect on your time here and like, what's something you wish you'd known prior to diving into the sustainability ecosystem while you're here? And then I guess a bonus question for that is, what is something that is, you didn't really get a chance to really get involved in that you really wish you could go back in time and like, I really wish I did more of that.
I have one. I'd say, Carly did a great job of this, and I was able to do this in my second year. But internships during the semester, I mean, the semesters are really busy and crazy, and you don't have to do this. But if you really want to make a big pivot, it can really help to get sort of experience even before the summer internship. And even if you don't want to, you just want to try things. People are really overtly focused on like the summer internship and then the full-time job, but there are tons of other opportunities for like part-time work. You just network with people, and if you're talking to really small startups, it might be open to you just getting involved, and you never know where things will go from there. So I think that's something that I wish I knew going in.
For me,
And
I
there was
think it's just the number of sustainability resources that are here. There's the club, there's the sustainability certificate, but there's also, the conference, the MIT Energy Conference, the Climate Energy Prize, Greentown Labs, and the engine we alluded to. Um, I wasn't really, I had known a little bit about that, and that's why I came to Sloan, but really just the vast array. And so, as a club, and then particularly within the certificate, we've been doing more and more of a job of collecting all of these resources so that when you get here day one, you really know what's available to you because frankly, I showed up and felt like I was a kid in a candy store, and there are just so many resources available to you. Um, what I wish I did more of, the network of professors and really interesting ideas that are coming out of MIT is seemingly endless. And so, through classes and through some of the club connections, there are great ways to get in touch, but would recommend while you're here over the 2 years, if someone's working on something really cool, if there's a professor that you want to get to know, they are so willing and accessible to talk to you about an area that you're interested in. So really take advantage of that while you have it.
I think from my side, I took some really interesting classes outside of Sloan, but that really only happened for me this year. I wish in my first year I had also like experimented with one or two of the broader MIT classes because you just only have so much bandwidth to take courses while you're here for such a short period of time. Um, and of course, Sloan was incredible. I wanted more of a finance focus to my curriculum here. And so I really focused on the finance offerings for my Sloan specific classes, which were wonderful. But there are some really in-depth sort of energy classes beyond Sloan as well that I wish I had taken more advantage of. And then I have to echo Tyler's sentiment on the professors here. I wish I had worked earlier to develop relationships with some of my professors because they're doing really incredible work and it's an incredible network that we have access to.
Thank you all for sharing. That actually concludes our moderated Q&A. So we have quite a few questions in the open Q&A. So I'm going to direct these questions versus having everybody answer so we can kind of get through as many as possible. The first one we have is talking about geopolitical topics in the club. So do you all invite speakers or specialists to talk about that? So Tyler, I can kick that off with you. So just more geopolitical topics as it pertains to energy and climate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that makes the club so special is kind of maybe two things is one, we are trying to cast as broad a net as possible because folks come from all different perspectives. So as Gideon alluded, there's a much more technical lens, but there are folks who come from policy backgrounds, and we actually have a lot of cross-registered students who do the MBA here at Sloan and the HKS Master's of Public Policy program. So we do take a kind of a broader lens there. The way we actually structure a lot of the club events is actually at the beginning of each year and the beginning of each semester, we take a poll of what areas are folks interested in, and that really guides the events and the speakers we have on campus. And usually what we'll end up doing is having that range of speakers. Those who come from, for example, we had Commonwealth Fusion Systems come, much more technical, much more startup oriented. And then we'll have folks from a policy lens. We'll have FERC come in. We'll have professors who do a little bit of both. Carly alluded to Chris Knittel, but there's also Catherine Wolfram, who really are the experts in the space and what are some of the economic or geopolitical implications of current events and decisions being made at the national and international level. And so frankly, I think there's no better place to have that connection of people who can come really speak well on the topic.
Gideon, I go to you for this because it kind of further expands on something you just mentioned about the in-semester internship. So is that something that is common at MIT Sloan where students are doing those in-semester internships?
I think I would say probably like 20% to 30% of people do like in like a during the semester part-time job or internship, something like that. So it's not the majority, but it's not uncommon, if that makes sense. I did one of the three of us. Tyler worked part-time after his summer internship continued. Carly did something part-time from earlier on. I did something part-time during my spring, like this spring semester at the beginning and over January IAP. So I guess it's like not talked about as much, but it's kind of common. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. And then Carly, I'll go to you for this next one. This student asked, does Sloan currently have any students pursuing coursework or post-MBA careers in a traditional energy or finance roles, such as LNG or natural gas, or within agricultural or mining commodity sectors?
Sure. I would say we're probably more renewables focused. And I'll add that there's a big nuclear interest, like both at Sloan and there's like a huge nuclear program more broadly at MIT. And so I would say that the folks in this ecosystem tend to be more sort of renewables and nuclear focused versus natural gas, fossil fuels, et cetera. That being said, we do have some folks who are going into investment banking in the power space, and I think that might be a bit more technology agnostic.
And Tyler, I'll come back to you for this one because you've mentioned how many things you've been involved in. While you're here, somebody asked, how do students or how does Tyler prioritize across those opportunities to build a focused energy/climate career without spreading himself too thin? So basically, how did you balance all that?
Yeah, fantastic question. As I alluded to, showed up, felt like a kid in the candy store, and grabbed as much as I possibly could. But for me, it's always been orienting to that sort of home base I alluded to. MIT Sloan broadly, but really the club has been sort of where I know I came to Sloan to focus really on pivoting to a more energy and climate focused career. So this is sort of the home base. This is where I spend most of my time priorities. But there's so much opportunity then to get involved as a member of other clubs. So again, for example, I've been focusing on the early stage side. So I go to the Climate and Energy Prize. I'm a member of the VCPE Club, also a member of our Sloan Hockey Club because everything doesn't have to be professional. And so, I always recommend to students like find what you're really excited, passionate about. What is it that brought you to Sloan in the first place? And let that be kind of your home base or your North Star. And then add on to that what makes you happy, what gets you excited, how do you want to round out your skills so that you're at graduation really feeling fulfilled by your experience. Our club is this way, every club at Sloan is this way. You can get as involved or not as involved as you want. So there's so many opportunities to do things and just build community, even if it's not what you came to Sloan specifically for.
And Carly, next one is directed at you. So does the club have any experiences or resources to help students who would like to go into project management within the climate tech space?
Absolutely. We host typically, so first would like to echo Tyler's earlier statement that it varies year to year based on kind of the interests of the club participants. Last year, we actually had a lot of folks who are very interested in the project development, project management space, and we had several speakers kind of from that industry, from some of the larger developers and EPC type firms come to campus to help facilitate conversation, share information about the industry and career path, and then also to help facilitate internships. And so I would say from my club experience, that tends to sort of come to fruition through a variety of speakers that we host on campus through our actually quite frequent lunch and learns that we host at Sloan.
Looks like we have time for maybe about three more questions. I think these three are the ones that are not um, duplicates in here. So this next question is talking about the AI and the rise of AI. How have the expectations for junior skill sets changed maybe during your time here? So Gideon, I can start with you, but anybody else can feel free to chime in.
I think everyone's still figuring it out. It makes AI, as we all know, has just made things more accessible. So you might not have been able to build like a really complex financial model in Excel yourself, but now you can have Claude do that for you. And like I think it's making everything more accessible, but also there's still a ton of value in having like actual expertise. So I don't really know is the short answer. I think we're all figuring it out. Um, and yeah, I'm not sure. Junior skill sets are, I think, we're all still coming here to build new skills. So I wouldn't worry about like being uncompetitive because of AI or something like that. I think the goal when you're coming here is to, with regards to AI, is to figure out how to use it to your advantage and like, um, you know, yeah, we're all very much learning how to use these tools and how things are changing it. And even when people say they know what's going on, nobody actually knows. So
Yeah, I think that, and as Carly alluded to, we do we're very career focused. So kind of going through interviews and helping people prep for interviews. So one of the things that I've been hearing quite a bit actually is that folks are more and more getting asked in interviews, how are you using AI and how are you developing these skill sets? Because employers are looking, understanding that it might slightly change what an entry level job looks like on a day-to-day function. They're really looking for folks who are willing to learn and use the new tools as they come out day after day. And so a lot of the feedback I've been hearing from first years who are doing internship interviews and then even second years has been the classes that are, as Gideon and I had both mentioned earlier, using how are you using it? It's now a project that you have to develop something using AI. Talking about those is actually been really successful because I think, as I mentioned, I think MIT is pretty forward thinking about how this is changing workforce. And so being able to show that at Sloan, you're using these tools, you're trying to learn and keep up with everything, I think is hugely valuable for what your career would look like after.
And Tyler, I'll pose this next question to you because it's also directed at you. How do you feel that your consulting experience at PwC fueled your Sloan experience? And do you see yourself going back to management consulting post-graduation at any point?
Yeah, great question. So there's, for me, when I came to Sloan, I think it was thinking about what are the skill sets that I developed while in consulting. What do I think I need to work on and really get experience in while at Sloan to position me for a successful career after? And that's really obviously the energy focus here. I think the skills are hugely valuable. A lot of the professional development skills, how you manage teams, how you manage clients, how you manage projects. Those are such, I think, core skills. So folks coming in with that consulting background can really leverage that in a number of ways. For me, I felt like that helped position me well for as I then thought about what are the functions or roles within an organization in the energy industry specifically. Personally, my plan is not to go back into consulting afterwards. I, really enjoyed my experiences, and for those who are coming to Sloan to pivot into consulting, I think it's a great career path. But I think, if you are looking to make a change, Sloan's a really great way to use the skills you have, focus on what think you need to work on and get hands-on experience in, and then bringing that out in a career afterwards.
And I just have one final question for the group before we wrap up. We do have a mixed bag of incoming students as well as some prospective students trying to figure out when's the best time to apply. So I just want to close with asking each of you, what's a piece of advice you would give to somebody that's entering this next stage of their career, whether it's an incoming student looking to have 2 years here at Sloan or somebody that is waiting to press submit on the next application cycle?
That's a tough question. I don't think there's a bad time. I don't think you can go wrong. If I think back, like I worked for 5 years before coming back. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I should have come back after 3 to, would have sort of given me a bigger delta and sort of like salary after school. But I would have been like a totally different person with a totally different background at that point. And like, I don't even know if I would have gotten the same amount I've gotten out of school. I don't know if when it feels right, I'd say go for it. If you've been out of undergrad for 3 years and you really want to go, just go. Like, don't worry about, do I need another 2 years? That's my opinion on it. I think you can't go wrong, and just, anywhere between sort of, I don't know, somewhere 3 to 7 years or 2 to 7 years is, I think, totally, and even beyond that, if you want, why not? But something in that range, I think, is a good, solid spot to get the most out of the program.
Yeah, for me, I think it's particularly valuable as you've been in the working world for a few years, as Gideon alluded to. Current Sloanies, that ranges from 3 to 5 to 7, whatever it may be. I honestly forgot how exciting it was to be back in a classroom, to be back in a learning environment, and just frankly how much you learn, and then kind of gear that up a notch because of how fast paced the MBA program is. So as you're thinking about it, a lot of folks are, I think, really job focused. This is the job I have now. This is the job I want after. And is this going to give me that pivot? And that is certainly one way to think about it. But there is so much more valuable learning that goes on over the course of the 2 years in the classroom, in the clubs like the Sloan Energy Climate Club, in the folks that you're meeting, your other classmates, your professors, the industry folks that we bring in, that it's not just, is this career change going to be A to B? But there's just so much more learning that goes on in the 2 years that, frankly, I think I underappreciated, even though I made the decision to come here in the first place. And that I'm so thankful now looking back on those 2 years. So if you are eager to keep learning, to really develop new skills, work on the skills you have, and really drive what I think will be a valuable career after, I think there's no better time to do it.
Gosh, I really have nothing to add to those two answers. I came to Sloan with 6 years of work experience, so maybe like slightly above the average. To echo what Tyler said, I've learned so much over the course of the 2 years, and to echo Gideon's early comment about the in-semester internships, I was able to participate in a fundraise process for a startup, which was incredibly valuable, particularly as I look for opportunities in the climate and energy kind of startup space. And so I also very much underappreciated how much I would learn and how much additional professional development I would have access to over the course of 2 years at Sloan. And so yeah, I think wrapping up with kind of Gideon's remark, it really is so personal and dependent on your own path. But I've had an incredible experience over the past couple of years.